Hello, and welcome to the 2020 Memorial Butterfly Release. My name is Erin Gray, and I'm the Bereavement Coordinator for Munson Healthcare Hospice. I'm joined here today by Sherry Wilson, President of Munson Healthcare Home Health, Lisa White, Director of Munson Healthcare Home Care, Palliative, and Hospice, Joy Moratsky, Munson Healthcare Hospice Regional Manager, Sharon Newman, Bereavement Coordinator, and Munson Healthcare Hospice Clinical Supervisors Meg Guthrie and Shannon Suarez. Thank you all for not only being here today, but also for supporting this event and the tremendous healing it brings to our community. I would also like to thank all of our participants for entrusting us with the privilege of releasing the butterflies this year. It was not an easy decision to hold the event virtually, and in the end, your safety was our primary concern. I am honored to be a part of this event this year and continue the legacy of the Memorial Butterfly Release. I believe I can speak for all of us here today when I say that we look forward to holding this event in future years with all of you present with us. It has been an interesting start to my tenure as the Bereavement Coordinator, and I have not yet had the chance to meet many of our wonderful community members in person. And I so look forward to the day when we can resume our in-person groups and be physically present with one another. Until then, please know that our telephone support groups remain active as a safe place for sharing and healing. Our bereavement staff is here for you and holding you in loving light, as always. You may reach us at any time by calling Munson Healthcare and asking for hospice bereavement. I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker, Bereavement Coordinator Sharon Newman, my mentor and friend.
Thank you, Erin. Hello, friends. Thanks for joining us today. We're so grateful to be able to connect for this very special event in remembrance of your loved ones as well as ours. Thanks again to all the many Munson staff and volunteers who made today's event possible, and also to GT Butterfly House for the loving care of the butterflies we're going to see very soon. These Munson Hospice Memorial Butterfly Releases have become favorite annual events over the years throughout the region, and we're glad to be able to continue this memorial tradition today while also continuing to practice safe social distancing. It is important to acknowledge that this has been a challenging time for our community and throughout our nation. And we thank you most sincerely for your generous outpouring of support to all of us working in healthcare during the challenges brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. Your understanding support means more than you can know to all of us. We also thank you for allowing us the privilege of caring for your loved ones during a most sacred time in your families. Each year, nearly 1,000 families invite us into the privacy of their lives to provide care and comfort when a loved one has chosen hospice. Please know we are humbly honored by every invitation and opportunity to companion your loved one and then your family on this sacred journey and continue to walk alongside you after your loved one has passed through that thin veil between this world and the next. We are here for you. Being here for you is our calling. So please, reach out to Munson Hospice and the bereavement team. Lean in and know you are not alone. This year, many of the journeys have been impacted by the effects of the COVID pandemic, and we sincerely understand that these unusual circumstances have added components to the grief experience that are new to many of us. In my own family, Both my aunt and father-in-law spent their final days in environments where family presence was severely restricted. And although we understood the reasons, our hearts still felt an extra layer of sadness because of these extraordinary circumstances. So how can we begin to heal from these often deep emotional and spiritual wounds? Of course, the bereavement team is always here to help you, but some answers may come from what we have already learned long ago. When I was a young woman, I asked my grandmother that same question: how do we begin to heal? She was such a positive and joyful presence in our family and in my life personally. She was the kind of person who sang and danced her way through every day. Yet I knew she had experienced tremendous hardship and tragic loss in her life, beginning with the tuberculosis epidemic of the last century. During that time, my grandmother's 3 sisters traveled from Escanaba to Detroit. They were nurses. They had decided to help during the pandemic. One by one, they came home from Detroit because they had contracted the devastating disease themselves. And one by one, they succumbed to the disease. And if that weren't enough, Grandma's only remaining sister, not long after, died from a tragic injury. And years later, her beloved husband died prematurely, leaving her all alone on the family farm and with many unmet expectations for what would have and should have been their golden retirement years. The time came that I asked her, "Grandma, I've been wondering, how can you still be so happy? I mean, so many sad things have happened in your life." And without missing a beat, she smiled and said, "Well, it's actually quite simple, darling. First, of course, you're very, very sad. Sometimes for a long time. But then you get up and you start living. First 1 hour, then 1 day at a time. And another day, and another day. You lean in to those who care. They help you along, and one day, to your own great surprise, you find yourself singing and dancing again." And she was right. That's what this journey is about. The poet Khalil Gibran wrote about joy and sorrow in this way: "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy." True, very true. Today we're here to remember your loved ones, to celebrate them, the love that eternally binds you to them, and the connection you will always enjoy. So in a moment, we will be reading aloud your loved ones' names. And then after each name is spoken, a Tibetan Naga singing bowl will be sounded in honor of your loved one. This particular singing bowl is an antique, originally from a Tibetan monastery, where it sang countless prayers for spiritual healing and connection. As the bowl sings for your loved one, it is a prayer for spiritual healing and connection. After all the names have been read aloud, Shannon will add, "and all those named on our hearts." And the Tibetan Naga bowl will sound one more time in prayer, for spiritual healing and connection with all those we carry on our hearts today. Then together we will release the butterflies, a beautiful symbol of your eternal love for and connection with your loved ones. A connection and a love that remain between this world and the next. And once the butterflies have been released, we'll share a short reflection about the meaning of the butterfly through a story written by a mother to her son. I know you will find meaning in her thoughtful words. And then we'll close our program by quietly enjoying the beauty of these ethereal creatures nectaring in the gardens at Hospice House, accompanied by the soothing sounds of the harp, evoked from this beautiful instrument by our devoted Mary Mintz. At this time, Sherry Wilson will now come to the podium and begin the next portion of today's program. Thank you very much.
I'd like to just briefly say what an honor and a privilege it is to lead such a talented and caring hospice team here at Munson. Every year that we do this, we see what solace it brings to the families who are participating. Of course, this year with the virtual participation, it'll be a little different, but still hoping that it will be meaningful to those of you who are watching this video, and it will bring some peace and joy. To those of you who are here. So I'm going to start reading the names now. Mona Adams, Helen Anderson, Mike Anderson, Bruce and Jean Andrews, Jeff R. Getzinger, Roger Barber, Wayne Barber, Douglas E. Barnes, David Gerald Barth, Michael Beatty, Jane Black, Ruth Borman, Mary Lou Banaki Gill, Sharon L. Brandt,
Smokey Brooks, John Burr, Lori Bayarski, Bruce Thomas Dawson, John Daniel Dawson, Sally Day, Colonel Wilson Bill Dean, Walter Eugene Jean Estep, Jack O. Fountain, Frederick Gainforth, Patsy Gallagher, Myrna L. Gardner, Stephen Anthony Gear,
Nancy Gallazin, Charmian E. Goldsby, Randy Harris, Michael S. Herzberg, Glenn Lee Hyatt, James H. Hilt, Sr., my beloved Hobbs, Janet C. Jacks. David DeForest Jordan. Amber Chemo. Richard Chemo. Heidi Ann Lalonde. Karen Marie Lalonde. Mary Ann Lalonde. Nancy Eloise Lambert.
Warren Larson. Ruth LaCornu. Marvin Leader. Neil Leader. Alphonse Lepka. Martinus Marty Letts. Sheldon Howard Levin. Michael Mahaney. Michael J. Masternack. Marnie Matson. Kimberly McEvers Coberly. Carol Louise Mindersma. John G. Metzler.
Lenny Miller. Donald W. Mills. Mary K. Moore. Robert W. Moore. Karen A. Mudgett. Betty Munson. Bob Munson. Darlene K. Mahituk. Alfred Al Neugebauer. Sally Pasillo and Chris Kunkel. Cyrulus Sandy Paul. George Edwin Palmatier. Mary Helen Phillips. Lene Suzanne Prange.
Gertrude Prey. Barbara Perpich. Felix Victor Renkovich. Evelyn Risden. Bill Rohr. Alfred C. Roney. David T. Rowe. Jean Schubert. Helen Marie Schwegel. Sylvia Ebo Schwegel. Thomas C. Schwegel. Deborah Shaw. Robert J. Skoselas.
Smith, United States Air Force, retired. Dorothy E. Snyder. Betty Lou Springer. Kayla Marie Story. John Milton Tharp Jr. Clifford Vine. Stephen E. Wickstein. Elmer Edward Wheeler. Esther Marie Wheeler. Frank M. Wheeler. James Edward Wheeler. Leslie Martin Wheeler. George Wilson. Karen Wohlert. And all of those unnamed on our heart.
This butterfly story was sent in by Tammy in honor of her son Christopher. In a green meadow filled with milkweed and flowers, there lived a colony of caterpillars. They were a happy colony, living a quiet life in the cool shade. For many months they were busy, very busy, scurrying around and munching on the soft milkweed leaves. They didn't notice that every once in a while, one of the colony seemed to lose interest in crawling around with its friends. It would go off alone and climb high up in the trees. Gradually, it would move out of sight and was seen no more. "Look," said one of the caterpillars to another. "One of our colony is climbing up the tops of the trees. Where do you think he's going?" Up, up, and up it slowly went, even as they watched. The caterpillar disappeared from sight. Its friends waited and waited, but it didn't return. "That's funny," said one caterpillar to another. "Wasn't he happy here? Where do you suppose he went?" No one had an answer, and they were greatly puzzled. Finally, one of the caterpillars gathered its friends together. "I have an idea. The next one of us who climbs to the tops of the trees must promise to come back and tell us where he or she went and why." "We promise," they all said. "We promise." One spring day, not long after the caterpillar who had suggested the plan found himself climbing high up into the trees. Up, up, and up he went. higher and higher into the trees, and before he knew what was happening, he had broken through the canopy of leaves into the warm sunlight and fell into a deep sleep. When he awoke, he looked about in surprise. He couldn't believe what he saw. A startling change had come over his old body. He now had beautiful wings. Even as he struggled, he felt an impulse to move his wings. And the warmth of the sun soon dried the moisture from his new body. He moved his wings again and suddenly found himself flying into the blue sky. He had become a butterfly. Swooping and dipping in great curves, he flew through the air. He felt exhilarated in the new atmosphere. By and by, the new butterfly landed on a leaf to rest. Then it was he looked below to the bottom of the meadow. Why, he was right above his old friends, the caterpillars. There they were, crawling around and munching on milkweed, just as he had been doing before. Suddenly, the butterfly remembered his promise, and without thinking, he darted down. He landed on a flower and looked into the grass. But now that he was a butterfly, he could no longer go back. "I can't return," he said. "I can't return. At least I tried, but I can't keep my promise. Even if I could go back, not one of the caterpillars would know me in my new body. I guess I'll have to wait until they become butterflies too. Then they'll understand. Then they'll know what has happened to me and where I went." And the butterfly winged off happily into its new world of sun and air. Dear God, please remember those who have left the meadow we live in, and remember us who are still here.